Hello, and welcome to this special episode from the Paris Fan Club channel called How to Buy an Apartment in Paris. We are streaming live from YouTube and Facebook today for those of you who may be joining us this way. And those of you who have pre-registered for this program, thank you. You are online with us now, and you are able to interact with us in the chat, or you can show your face and raise your hand to ask questions at any time. So, if you're attending this broadcast, you probably love Paris, I'm thinking, right? And maybe you've been to Paris, maybe multiple times. Perhaps you're just interested, or maybe you're just curious about what it would be like to buy an apartment in Paris. I know I've always been. Your own pied-à-terre in the City of Light. If this is your dream, you have come to the right place. So today we're going to talk about the current market in Paris, because things have changed a lot there as they have in other parts of the world. And purchasing a property as a foreign buyer, which is always a bit scary. We'll also look at the step-by-step process of making offer, the legalities of some of that. And we'll be doing this with my special guest and co-host. Christine Bacoup-Tidas is a buyer's agent, and she's also a French-American lawyer who helps people search for and then manage the process of finding and purchasing an apartment or property in Paris. So she is literally the perfect expert to tell us more about this, and she joins us from Paris. Hello, Christine. How are you?
Hello, Diana. Hello, everyone. I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
Good. And it's a bit chilly where you are, no? That's kind of unusual for this time of year.
Oh, today is warmer, actually.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Glad to hear that. Okay, so before you and I get going, I'm going to bring in Marc Caron, who, along with my team in Vancouver, will be producing today's program and monitoring the chat for questions, bringing you all into the conversation if you choose to do so, and we encourage you to do so. So hello, Marc. How are you?
I'm great, Diana. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and your guests and talking about all things Paris. So thank you very much for doing what you do. I just want to give everybody in the Zoom audience just a friendly reminder. If you can please keep your microphones muted, really helps us out here on this end. And when you're viewing, the best way to be viewing the program is in speaker mode, and that way you'll get to see the slides and see everything that is going on as the ladies are sharing about how to buy real estate in Paris. If you want to comment, I'm watching the comments. We can bring your questions and things of that nature into the program, as well as if you want to raise your digital hand, we can also bring you in towards the end when we have some Q&A and things of that nature. And if there's anything else you want to add, Diana?
No, I'm just wondering whether you've got your wallet out to buy an apartment in Paris for us, Marc.
Oh, I'm always looking.
Good answer. Okay, well, let's go back to Christine and bring her into the conversation now. So Christine, why don't you start by, just giving us a little bit of your background of where you grew up and becoming a lawyer. Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Well, I was born and raised in Paris, and I grew up there. Went to high school. I was a professional dancer, actually.
Whoa.
And I moved to New York at 18 after I got my high school diploma. Moved there as a dancer, and then after a few years I decided to leave dance and go to college. So I went to undergrad and then to law school in New York. I graduated there and worked in-house, and moved to Paris in 2002 and worked for various law firms and in-house counsel, legal director, and compliance specialist and anti-fraud specialist. And in parallel, I had a daughter, right? I got married.
Now, I think we have a picture too. I'll get Marc to put up the slide of your family here, and we'll wait for that to come up for a minute. Okay, there we go. Okay.
Yeah.
So that graduation, first of all, on the left?
Yeah. Law school graduation back in 1995. That sounds like ages ago.
I know.
But, yeah, I graduated in 1995, and in the middle you can see my husband, Christophe, and my daughter Melody. She's 17 years old, and myself when I was just a little bit younger.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, you look great. You look great.
thank you. And as I was saying, my daughter, she's bilingual. She went to bilingual schools in Paris, and back then I started helping friends to find an apartment in Paris, and friends that were also in the United States. And around COVID, I started to think, oh, maybe I would like to do that
Oh, okay.
and leave the corporate world. So that's what I did actually. I started doing that full time and quite enjoyed it, and became a buyer's agent so that I could really help buyers find an apartment in Paris.
And you could have become a real estate agent. So tell us the difference between what a buyer's agent is and a real estate agent.
Yes. So basically, a real estate agent really is there to represent the seller of an apartment. The seller will go to the real estate agent and will say, oh, I have my apartment to sell. So they will take pictures and create the listing. They will draft the listing. And they will present the apartment under their best light.
Mm-hmm.
And they're there to show the apartment and find buyers. I'm on the buyer's side. So basically, I advocate for the buyer and vouch for them and explain to them everything they need to do, kind of like the lawyer who represents her client.
Right.
And so I'm really here to represent the buyer's best interest.
Right. Okay. So then, and we may point out here, and we've got a slide to show this, there's no MLS in France. Like
Yes.
here, you can go online and start looking yourself to see what you want, and then maybe approach a real estate agent. But we have a little thing to we'll put up that slide where just no multiple listings here. So tell us the difference about that. And it's like, you were just explaining that real estate agencies can only show properties they are mandated to sell. So they have their own portfolio, right?
Exactly. Yes, they have their own portfolio. And that's the main difference between, for example, real estate in the United States and other countries that have a multiple listing service. Whereas in France, there is no such thing as a multiple listing service. So the real estate agents are really able to only show properties that they are mandated by the sellers to show. As a buyer's agent, I can liaise with the real estate agents, but also I can liaise with the sellers directly, and I don't have to show particular properties
I see.
that real estates are mandated to sell by the sellers. So I have the freedom to show and to search for apartments that exactly match the criterias of my clients.
Makes sense.
So that's the very important difference between a real estate agent and a buyer's agent.
And really, to underline that point, it's just like somebody in another country trying to buy something in France where they can't go online and see any, all the properties. It's kind of a scary place to go because you don't know if you're getting all of them. You don't know, right? So that's people have to realize that's why it's so important to really work with somebody, whether it's a real estate agent or a buyer's agent that they know is going to give them the full market, right?
Exactly, the full market, and also as a buyer's agent too, because the real estate agencies always try to present the properties under their best light. They don't pinpoint, oh, there's no view, there's a view on a wall, or the apartment is above a restaurant or a bar that stays open until 2 a.m. You will only see what is supposedly best for the client. So then with a professional eye, you will ask the questions, specific questions to real estate agents and find out, oh, where is it located exactly? And is it above a restaurant? Is there an elevator? Little questions like that that may be very important for my clients.
Right, right. Makes sense. All right. So let's talk about the market itself, the overview. I think any of us who are in the market or would like to be in the market, I think, oh my God, Paris has got to be the most expensive city in the world. I'm never going to be able to do this. You're here to sort of tell us that things are kind of changing a little bit there. And we put up a slide of the very famous slide of, Paris arrondissements, which are all the different districts, right?
Yes.
So just tell us a little bit about what's going on with the current market right now.
Well, the current market is very good for buyers because basically with the inflation, the interest rates in France, for those who need to get a loan, they are a little bit higher. In general, they are about between 4 and 5%. They vary monthly, right? So they are between 4 and 5%. So basically, the sellers, they have a hard time finding buyers because for France, 4 to 5% interest rate is very high. I know compared to the United States, it went up to 8% recently, 7, 8%. So 4, 5% may seem low, but for France, it's pretty high. Right. So for sellers, it's difficult to sell an apartment. So basically, prices have been going down. And this is really good for the buyers. This is very good for the buyer because they can negotiate. We can negotiate more. And that's what I do for my clients. Basically, I try to negotiate as much as I can.
As a lawyer, that would be helpful. Can we go back, Mark, to the slide of the arrondissement for a minute? Because I just want to have Christine point out. Okay, so, we're going to show some apartments in a minute that are in and if you're all looking at this now, the ones we're going to show you are in the 5th, the 7th, and the 9th, which is actually my preferred location. I love the 9th. But is it get cheaper as you go out further? Is it more expensive as you get closer to the Eiffel Tower? Like the 7th is where the Eiffel Tower is. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, basically, well, last year, the average price per square meter was about 10,000 euros per square meter. Now it's a little bit less, but true, Diana, the closer you get to the center of Paris, so 1 to 7th arrondissement, these arrondissements, actually 6 and 7 are the most expensive. 5th is pretty expensive too. But as you go to the outskirts of Paris, 16, 17, it's a little bit cheaper. Yes, and generally the trend is that the price are going down. It's some of the arrondissements, like the 20th, the 19th, the 11th, they are going down and they are less than 10,000 euros per square meter.
And they're becoming like I've stayed in the 17th. I loved it. The 19th and the 20th are really trendy now too, because they've sort of been gentrified a bit more. Am I right?
They are up and coming. Yes, actually, I used to live in the 19th.
Yeah.
I used to live near Parc des Buttes-Chaumont, which is a very hilly park with lots of trees. That's also where I got married. And yes, it's up and coming. Like the 11th and the 10th, they are up and coming. Very artsy areas with lots of bars and restaurants and arts exhibits. So yeah, overall Paris, is depending on what you're looking for, your lifestyle, your work, whether or not you have children, there is an arrondissement for everybody.
Well, that's good to know. Yes. And we've got a couple of people are asking some questions here. I'm going to come to you, both Susan and Judy. Susan's got one about the legalities of bringing pets to France because she loves her cats. We'll come to that though as we're going through these the apartments. And another one from Judy says that obtaining a mortgage is almost impossible for someone over 60. does she have lenders who works with? I'm going to talk about both of those things. So let's keep that in mind. So Mark, would you put up, let's just show, we picked about 3 apartments that are still for sale as far as we know, right? And here we go. So let's just, I'll just map this out for somebody. So 1 bedroom, that means there are 2 rooms. And the 565,000 euros is like almost unheard of. And since I've been going to Paris, so this is really good. I mean, it looks very bare bones because they haven't done a lot with the furniture, but it's a beautiful space, it looks like, and that translates to about 615,000 US dollars. So let's have a look at the next shot too, and we can talk. Let's talk a little bit about this. No balcony on this one, and 380 square feet sounds really tiny.
Yes.
Is it?
It is. It can be tiny, but it depends on how it is planned. You know, sometimes you have big apartments with a long hallway, and you have a lot of space. Here, the space is optimized, and actually, this apartment is right up the street from the Luxembourg Garden.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
When you enter that building, I know that street very well. When you enter that building, on the left, you can see the Invalides and the Eiffel Tower, and of course the Luxembourg Garden. So it's really close to La Sorbonne and to the Pantheon. So it's a really prime area, right across the street from also the 6th arrondissement, because the Luxembourg Garden is in the 6th arrondissement. And this building is an 18th century building, so pretty old. And as you can see, there are beams on the ceiling.
Yes.
There are beams, hardwood floors. So they have the
beautiful
classical cachet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all done. And, you know, I will just add, because I've got a place in Nice that is 500 square feet. And it feels incredibly spacious because of the way it's all organized. So it's amazing what they can do. Let's just talk, I'll get to pets here. It's sort of a sidebar, but, you know, are pets a problem, number one, to have in apartments in France?
No.
Okay.
I mean, for example, I live in an apartment where the interior, the regulation says no pets, but everybody has a pet here. What they don't like are big dogs that bark all day and dangerous dogs, you know.
Yes.
But if you have a cat or dog, you know, everybody has a dog in Paris, you know. It's just part of, and you can take your dog to the restaurant, to, I mean, bakeries they don't really like, you know, but
Did you take your cat to the restaurant? I've never seen it.
Usually people don't walk out there, but you could see, you know, cats on a leash sometimes.
And is it this? Susan was really asking: is it hard to bring an animal into France? Into the UK, it's almost impossible. You have to keep it in quarantine for 6 months or something. But is it hard to bring a pet to France?
I know that with France, there are agreements between countries.
The country.
Like more recently, there have been agreements, and I think with the United States, it's easier to bring a pet. Yes. Actually, when I lived in New York, you know, I used to go back and forth with my cat, and it was no problem. I didn't have to quarantine her or anything like that. So, you know, already like 25 years ago, it was already easy to bring a pet. Yes.
All right. Well, let's go to the next apartment that we picked for. This one is a little bit bigger and a little bit more expensive, but it has a balcony. And this one is on the market, and we'll say where it is in a minute, 860,000 euros, which translates also almost to $1 million US. But let's have a look at it. It's truly pretty. So pretty. See the next slide, Mark. Okay, there we go. Let's go to 2 slides in there. So this one is in the 9th, which again, my favorite location. I've stayed there a few times, and 70 meters. I had an apartment at 70 meters. That was very spacious, very spacious. So tell us a little bit about this, and maybe we can talk a bit about financing here.
Yes.
What do you do if you're interested in an apartment like this one?
Yeah, this one is pretty spacious. It's near Rue des Martyrs. I don't know if you know,
Yes.
Rue des Martyrs, but
The food district of Paris. It's a wonderful street, Rue de Martyrs. Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
And actually, an American woman wrote a book on
Yes,
Rue des Martyrs.
recently. Yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so this is a really fun neighborhood. About financing, basically, before I even sign a contract with a prospect client, I advise them to go see either their bank. Some of my clients can pay cash, so they just need to see their banker and get a comfort letter. Otherwise, I send them to one of my mortgage brokers who are used to working with foreign buyers. I don't only work with Americans, I also work with people from other countries like China or Australia, all over the world. And so I send them to a mortgage broker, and actually they calculate their budget based on their income, on various items, and then they get an actual idea of their budget, because sometimes people may have an idea of their budget and then they're quite surprised that they can afford more or sometimes a little bit less. But so it's a good idea to have a good a set a definite a knowledge of the budget they have.
Yeah.
And again, I know brokers who can extend loans to buyers, prospect buyers. And usually, when you get a mortgage from a bank, then you will open a bank account with that bank so that you can pay back the mortgage.
Right.
For those who pay cash and need to transfer funds from abroad, then I will advise them to contact another company that can transfer funds securely.
Right.
To the bank.
So, and to answer this other question from Judy, saying, is it hard for someone over 60 to get a mortgage or something in France?
Okay. If you're 60 and you're healthy, it shouldn't be any more trouble than if you're 30 and very sick. It depends on your health condition. Usually, if you're if you're younger than 70 years old, it shouldn't be a problem. Then, of course, depending on your health, the mortgage may be more the insurance to the mortgage
on the mortgage
more expensive.
Yeah, that's where it would make a difference. Yes. Okay.
Yes, because the risk is higher.
But it just depends on the situation.
Exactly.
Okay, good. All right. So let's go to the third property, and this is the one I want, of course. Go to the first picture, not the second one. The one before this, please. The picture you had before. There we go. So this is a 2-bedroom apartment for a lot of money, for 1.5 million euros, which is just 1.6 US dollars. Don't, if you're looking at Canadian or Australian right now, just don't. But anyway, you get the idea. It's beautifully decorated. Now we can go to the next picture, because this one is in the 7th, which is near the Eiffel Tower, and near Le Bon Marché, which is a gorgeous store, right? But this is a big unit for Paris. This is huge. Yeah,
this is huge. And again, this is the listed price. But one main difference, also a major difference between the United States and other countries, is that the listed price can be negotiated down.
Right.
So 1.5, I will always try to negotiate it down. And
do you have like what we have here, that is, multiple people want the property as soon as it goes on the market, and there's a bidding war, which we all hate. But no,
we don't have that in France. No, it's prohibited to do that. Basically, you negotiate the price down, and then you can negotiate the furniture. You can negotiate, appliances, things that you like,
Right.
light fixtures, and actually they can serve to lower the closing fees.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
And let's say you want to do this because you want to go and spend some time there every year, but you'd also like to rent the property as well.
Mhm.
Is that difficult to do? And knowing, that Airbnbs are becoming a little bit stricter in Paris, that kind of thing?
Well, basically, Airbnb is a platform, right? It's a platform where you can find apartments for like a night, a week, a month, or several months.
Right.
Right. So there's Airbnb, and there are other platforms, other agencies where you can rent apartments for a night or longer. What is pretty much prohibited now in Paris, because there's a shortage of housing in Paris. People who work in Paris, they cannot find a place to sleep, basically, because prices have been going up due to the fact that people would rent out their apartment by the night, right? For a very high price. So the mayor of Paris has tried to prohibit that, but you can rent out your apartment for at least 30 days to 10 months a year.
Okay, you
to
can.
the same person and furnished.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And you can go on the various places to do that. You can either go through a private company or, okay. So
yes.
Okay, good to know. Question here about if someone was a foreign buyer, was buying an apartment and they passed away, is there any issue with them giving it over to their heirs?
No, and that will be provided in the deed, actually.
Okay.
In France,
Yes.
if you pass away, then either your spouse and or the children will inherit.
Okay.
So that is provided in the deed, actually, and by law, it will go to the spouse or to the children, depending on the situation. And if there's a prenuptial agreement also, but in France, you cannot disinherit your children.
Good. Well, that's good. Well, maybe it is good. But we've seen those movies where let's say you have somebody renting the apartment, and then they don't want to leave when you want to sell it or something. Oh. Is that a problem, or was that just something that happened years ago and no longer is true?
Well, I think anything can happen, and you have more of a risk when you rent your apartment by the night. And there's been some horror stories of people who were renting, like one night at a time. And then you would have like, prostitution and all of that, So that's also a reason to prohibit rental on Airbnb for short.
Right. Which can happen anywhere too. Let's
yes, that could happen anywhere, of course. Yeah.
What would be a down payment for an apartment, like even the smallest one we showed, or is it the same percentage for all of them?
Well, the notary I work with asks for 5% down payment, and then it depends on whether or not the seller agrees to that. Mm-hmm. But usually I haven't had any issue with 5% down payment. Yes.
Yeah. So that's basically what we have too. So that's not, we were expecting maybe more of a bigger percentage than that, but it's not, right?
It's not. Actually, it may be different for the bank, like if you want to get financing, right? And you want to get a loan, right? Then your bank may ask you to have a certain contingency, right? Your personal contribution to it. But that's from the financial viewpoint, right? The bank may ask you to get more of a personal contribution, but to sign the preliminary contract with the notary, the
Right.
notary will only ask for 5% down.
We're going to show the steps in a minute too. There's a message here from Kim. She said, once a foreign individual owns a property, is it easier to get a longer visa? Does it help in terms of, if you're going to spend more than 3 months? No, you're shaking your head. I'd be very surprised at that too.
Really. Not really. It's a factor. Of course, if you can show basically that you will not rely on the government to live, that you have money in your bank account, that will definitely help. But owning an apartment in Paris is not going to automatically give you a carte de séjour. No.
Okay.
It would be too
Are there
simple.
condo fees and different countries call them something else like association fees and stuff. Are there condo fees for every building or how does that work?
Okay, so basically there's no such thing as a condo in France. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Basically, when you own an apartment in Paris, you pay for the co-owner, the common areas for the electricity.
That would be the lobby, any kind of extra rooms, any storage, things like that.
Exactly. Yes. So that you will pay in accordance to the size of your apartment.
Yeah.
And you pay every quarter.
Yeah,
right?
and from my experience, it would generally quite much lower than we would pay here for, let's say, a condo fee, a monthly condo fee, right?
Yes,
yeah.
But again, these are for the utilities or like the garbage disposal, or for the concierge. If you have a concierge, then you will split the fee.
Okay, similar but not exactly the same.
It's not exactly the same.
Okay.
And then you will meet once a year. You will have an annual, the equivalent of not the shareholders meeting, but the
like
owners meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
And
then you have an extraordinary meeting in case there is like an emergency situation and the co-owners need to decide on, I don't know, renovating the common area.
And are you allowed to renovate and do all of those things once you own the property?
In your apartment?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, it depends because if you, for example, if you want to remove a wall that is foundational, then you will need the approval of the co-owners, right?
Absolutely.
It may be dangerous.
Right? Yes.
But then if you want to change the paint and you want to do minor renovations, then you don't need the approval of the other co-owners because basically you own the apartment, so you don't need to get approval. Sometimes you may need approval to install an air conditioner, but because, usually air conditioners, you put them on the window, right? And doesn't look too good. So usually in France, you won't find too many air conditioners in the window, but there are new systems now whereby you don't need approval, and they work pretty well. Actually, I know someone
that fit in the unit.
Yes, someone who can install an alternate air conditioner system, and you don't need pre-approval for that.
Okay. Mark, let's go back to the last picture of that apartment just to remind ourselves if any of us wants to buy it. I do. Yeah, this is just the bedroom and the bath, the kitchen. It's gorgeous, hey? Isn't that gorgeous? It's just lovely. Let's go to the next slide, though. This is the important steps that, and I can read some of this to us, is that these are the steps you need to. So once you make an offer, right? And somebody like you make the offer like a real estate agent does for that person, negotiate a price. And do they respond quite quickly to that offer, or do they take their time?
Oh, when I make an offer for a client, right? I only give 48 hours for the seller to respond. Okay. The seller doesn't have to, respond by 48 hours, but I only indicate that past those 48 hours, the offer will no longer be valid. Right?
I see.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So then once the offer has been made, that there's a notary and you find like you would find that for them, right? The notary, they'll draft a.
Oh, yes. I have a notary that, you know, if my clients already have a notary, then they are free to use their own notary. But I know a notary, she speaks English. She's wonderful. And basically after the offer, she will contact the seller's notary and she will draft the preliminary contract, which we call promesse de vente. It
Okay.
takes about 4 weeks to draft. And that's when it's ready. That's when the buyer will need to put 5% down. And
So it
that,
takes a few weeks to draft that.
yes,
draft.
about,
Oh, okay,
let's
that's
say
interesting.
about 4 weeks. Yes.
Okay, that's very different. And then this is interesting. There's a mandatory cooling off period of 10 days. So during this time, the buyer can withdraw from the agreement
Yes.
without penalty. Afterward, the sale, this is buyer's remorse, right? If somebody buys something and goes, Diana can't afford that 1.6 apartment. Afterward, the sale becomes legally binding. So you have that 10 days to think about it.
Yes, basically when the offer is accepted by the seller, that's a commitment from the seller by the seller to sell the apartment, right? But the buyer has about 6 weeks to change his or her mind.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well,
basically when the offer is accepted, then it takes a month for the notary to draft the promesse de vente.
yes.
And the day after the signature of that promesse de vente, the buyer has an additional 10 days
10
to change
days.
his or
Okay,
her
so that
mind.
works out too. Okay, and then finalizing takes about 2 months. That's the 2 months, right? Altogether.
Well, if you pay cash, then it's 2 months. But if you take a loan, it may be an additional month, so 3 months. But altogether, I would say 4 months.
Okay, so that does give you lots of time to get excited about it. And then the closing day, there is what an acte de vente, and the buyer pays the remaining balance, the balance of whatever the mortgage is or whatever. Is that, well, like they pay the whole thing, but they
Yes,
have
the
a
whole
mortgage for that,
transaction.
like we do.
Yeah.
Okay, and the property's ownership is officially transferred. The deed is registered with the land registry, and then get out the champagne. That's great. That's good. Yes. No, and what if people want renovations and stuff done? I mean, just do you get people to help with that too if they want that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a whole team of partners, you know, whether it's mortgage brokers, interior designers, renovate construction workers. I have a whole team of and partners, even partners who can help with visa. So usually for renovations, I call on someone I've worked with, and my clients can usually get an estimate before they sign the promesse de vente. So
Right.
they have a pretty good idea of how much it's going to cost to renovate.
Right. And you know what, that's very important to point out, because you and I have talked about this before. Just, you know, I remember you had a client, Jennifer, who was looking for an apartment and she was doing it from afar, but you know, you found out that one of the ones that she was looking at was too close to a bar, and another
Yes.
one had problems or was too dark or what. I mean, that's the beauty of having somebody really go and look at it, right?
Yes, I've got the eye basically, and I ask all the questions before I even go and visit an apartment. I want to make sure that it's worth visiting. So I ask annoying questions to the to the real estate agents. Yes, because on the listing you will only see what is good for the potential buyer, but you won't see the nuisances and I also go through the legal documentation and all of that before the promesse de vente is signed.
Is the closing, I've got a question from Judy. Is the closing date negotiated, or is it simply after whatever process is finished?
Actually, the closing date is negotiated at when the promesse de vente is about to be signed. You know, basically the seller may want to move out a little bit later. I
So
have a client
negotiate that.
actually.
Yeah, not dependent on the negotiations of going
Yes.
through the steps.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Sometimes, like I have a client, we're going to sign on Monday, right? He's flying from Florida on Thursday. And so we're going to sign the promesse de vente on Monday, but the sellers, they have two children, and the children, they will finish school in July. So, they agreed that the deed will not be signed until early July after school. So that's something that was announced before, and my clients are okay with that. So yeah.
Do you ever get people that actually buy the apartment without seeing it?
Yes, actually, they make an offer without seeing it. Actually, when I visit an apartment, I film the apartment.
That's really
I
important.
film the
Yes.
neighborhood. I
You
film
film
the
it, not one of
entrance.
like a real estate that has the film up there. Okay.
Yes, and I film what
everything.
is the view from the windows. I film pretty much everything. So yes, I've had clients who made the offer knowing that they had 6 weeks to change their mind. So
Yeah.
they made the offer, right? Once it's accepted, they know they have 6 weeks to change their mind. They come over and see it and usually say, "Oh wow, it's exactly like the film."
Right. Yeah. Well, that's really important. Rhonda was asking, you just do Paris when we're talking
Yes.
about you. Okay. Good to know.
I only do Paris, but I know agents who work outside of Paris, so I could refer you to someone else who works outside of
For
Paris.
somebody. That's good. And people were asking, how much do you charge? How do you do this?
Well,
Because
it
the real
depends
estate
on.
agent makes the money on the end when they sell it, right? Which is not what you don't do that. So
No.
yeah.
Basically, the buyer pays me, right?
Yes.
So there's no split fee with the real estate agent because that would be a conflict of interest. It's illegal in France to do that. So my commission is based on, it's on a sliding scale. So the more you spend, the less I take, right? So it goes anywhere between 3.5% of the transaction price
Okay.
to 2.8% of the transaction price.
Yeah.
And my commission is not based on the real estate agent fee. It's only the net sales. That means the apartment price without the real estate agent's fee.
So, and what if they don't buy anything?
If they don't get the keys to the apartment.
No, I mean, how do you get paid if they don't buy anything?
I don't get paid.
You don't get paid. Okay, so similar to a real estate agent, except that we're seeing it. What I like about this is actually it's a fee for service, as opposed to they're getting the commission based on the sale of the property. Yeah. Okay, so a very different way of looking at it, right? That's very interesting.
Hi, Diana. It's Mark.
Yes.
We have a couple of other questions that got up in the chat. We had one from Lisa, and she was asking, does it make it easier, excuse me, for an American with Irish citizenship?
Or another citizenship, maybe.
Yeah. Does
that make any difference at all, Christine?
No. I mean, the really important point is your budget, Then the question may be in terms of visa, being able to stay in France. So that's an immigration issue. But in terms of being able to buy an apartment, you could be from any country. Mm-hmm. And in terms of financing, unless you're from a country that is sanctioned under international sanctions, then you're able to borrow from a bank. That's no issue.
And Mark, there was another question.
There was another one. I can't see it, but I remember it. It was, Rhonda asks, for Christina, do you only do Paris or do you do other cities?
Yeah, we just answered that one.
Okay, perfect.
Only Paris, and then she refers people. She has people who she can refer you to if you want to go outside of Paris. Yeah. So that's good. All right. And I think we better wrap it up here now. Oh my goodness, we could go on for some time about this, but thank
Yes.
you, Christine. That was incredibly interesting. And, by now, a number of you may be thinking that you might want to talk more to Christine, which, Christine, you're quite open to that, right? To just discuss this.
Definitely. And I also wrote a free guide, which pretty
Yes.
much explains every arrondissement and it explains a little bit further the steps, the French market, and how to proceed with buying an apartment in Paris. So if you're interested in it, please send me an email, and I will gladly send you a copy of that free guide.
That's wonderful. And I'll just point out, because it's an email you might not make sense to you, but the CBT, of course, are her initials. But Tomet Paris. Tomet is like an ancient tile that was used in French buildings. And she thought that was a lovely metaphor for both her website name and for her email. So it's tometparis.com if any of you want to write that down. If you don't get that down, you want to contact me to give it to you again, I certainly can do that. So Christine, thank you so much.
Thank
really,
you.
It's been so interesting to get a sort of a different perspective on all of this as well. So thank you for that. And just to wrap this up for everybody else, this is the kind of thing we do at the Paris Fan Club. We have a number of workshops like this on all things French, and I try to find the best guests I can. We also have a host of other resources, giveaways, a book club, and along with my special Paris travel kit with lovely items that one can use on their trips to Paris and France. If you want to find out more about that, just check out my website at parisfanclub.com, easy one, parisfanclub.com. And note that this year, even with a $50 annual membership, which entitles you to all sorts of stuff, I'm throwing in my beautiful, and I actually have it here, my beautiful Eiffel Tower. Can everybody see that? It's like, whoops, there we go. Eiffel Tower luggage tag and a pen to go along with it, so you can fill it out at no extra charge. And my next broadcast, by the way, is called French Chic. And this is with another Parisian stylist, Marie-Anne Lecoeur, who will tell us how to dress more French, appropriate to our age, and also show us a few ways to tie a scarf like a French person. So bring along those things to practice with us. That's on February 21st at 12:30 Eastern Time, but you have to be a member of the Paris Fan Club to participate. So once again, go look at parisfanclub.com to find out more. Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I hope we answered all of your questions. If not, contact one of us to get back to you. Thank you, Mark in Vancouver and the gang. And à la prochaine, mes amis. Au revoir. And bye-bye for now.
Au revoir.